see. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to be checking here if my live stream's working. I'm doing a live sound test here, so it'll be a second. All right, we're good. All right. Welcome in, everybody. My name's Rob. I'm the director of the Bird Study Group with the Hamilton Naturalist Club. Welcome in, everybody. I'm glad to see you all here tonight in this very, very, very cold weather. I was actually hoping to have some audio running with some nice summery bird sounds, but tech didn't work out tonight. But that's all right. We'll do that next time. A little bit about the agenda tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit about our group and the study area and so on. A bird of the month and some other birds found in the area in the last month. A little bit of bird advocacy news. I forgot to bring my field guide, but at least, you don't need to see the physical thing. There's a little bit about it in the slide. Some upcoming events, and of course, our guest speaker tonight. So the Hamilton Naturalist Club has been protecting nature since 1919. That's like 106 years, is it now, I think? The club is a nonprofit organization dedicated to the study, appreciation, and conservation of wild plants and animals. Our meetings and field events are open to everyone. Membership is not required. However, by becoming a member, you get our monthly journal, The Wood Duck, shown here, our January issue, and we'll be supporting our mission to protect nature in the Hamilton study area. And what is that study area, you might ask? Well, this circle represents that area. It encompasses the entirety, and I got a list of cities and towns here, but like cities of Hamilton and Burlington, the towns of Milton, Grimsby, and Oakville, the reserves of Six Nations, the Grand River, and Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and most of the city of Brantford and various other towns and municipalities are all part of our study area. Our center point for the study area, by the way, is Dundurn Castle. These lands have been the traditional territories of various indigenous peoples, including the Erie peoples, Adirondack, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and the Mississaugas. The HSA's treaty agreements include the Between the Lakes Treaty of 1792, the Brant Tract, Head of the Lake Purchase, Adjacents Treaty, and Treaties 22 and 23. These were agreements between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, who currently reside just north of Hagersville. Additionally, these lands are covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which is an agreement between the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources of the Great Lakes. Our club is presently steward of now 11 nature sanctuaries. You'll notice there's a new one on there. We also partner with many other organizations to protect even more land beyond this, but this does represent 500 acres of land so far. The club and its members also conduct numerous bird surveys and participate in bird conservation efforts across the HSA. We encourage our community members to consider what they might be able to do to support new birders and naturalists of all ages, including those who may be indigenous or part of other minoritized groups. We are all together facing the challenges of climate change, so growing the naturalist and birding communities can help support the protection of what remains, and in time can help us reclaim what has been lost so far. So what can you do if you want to get beyond membership in the HSA? Say you're a member already, you want to do a little more. We are seeking a grants and fundraising director still for our board. We are always looking for writers for the Wood Duck Journal. We're always looking for help with habitat restoration. Come out and help us steward various nature sanctuaries, which include that list back here, the new one, Pine Hill, for example. That's our new one. That is down in right around where Old Ancaster Road becomes Old Dundas Road, around that area. So there's a little bit on the website about that. Let's see. Lead a field event. I mean, you don't need to be an expert to lead a field event. You can just lead some people around and see what you find, where you go hiking or walking or do a long watch, anything like that. You just contact us at, I think that should be field events, actually. You could contact events at, and they'll probably forward you. They both work? Okay, good. Events at hamiltonnature.org for more info if you want to volunteer or learn more. You can also join the club Discord. That's something I said last month I would add to our website, and I haven't done that yet, so sorry. But do contact me directly if you want a link to that. My email will be at the end, but it's basically birdstudygroup@hamiltonnature.org. And sorry if some of the font is a little small here. I had to use a backup version of this, so some of the fonts might be off a little bit, so if it's a bit small, my apologies. Our bird study group goals, to keep our minds on birds beyond what we see and hear in the field, to allow for broader conversation about bird ecology, threats, efforts, trends, and predictions, to bring awareness and amplify efforts, initiatives, and projects that are having a positive impact, and to bring the average person and the expert birder into the same space. So let's get our bird of the month. This is something I just kind of select out of the pool of interesting birds that have been found in the last month. And here we have a Eurasian green-winged teal, aka a common teal, if you're from Europe. This was found, and this photograph is also by Richard Poort. This was at Windermere Basin. And you can see it in the center there, but there's also a second photo in the bottom left. I guess there's that shoveler there for size as well too, right next to it. And yeah, it was between that and another one, which I'll mention later, but you'll see why I didn't choose. Oh, this went tiny, unfortunately. So I'm going to read these out, because this is the one where the font went tiny on me. Notable birds this month. The pine warbler that was found in Mount Albion Conservation Area. That was found on Christmas Day, actually, and then refound during the Hamilton Christmas bird count, and then has been continuously found since then to be feeding on seed up there. Marsh wren, that one's one, I'll mention that later because that's one I found. Cackling goose down at Bayfront Park, but there was also a Bronte Harbor one. Harlequin duck was found out at Dingle Park in Oakville. Lapland longspur out at Fallsview Road. It's just up the mountain above Dundas. We got a snow goose that was found during the Flamborough Christmas bird count on Center Road. That's up in kind of Flamborough area. There was a couple of yellow-bellied sapsuckers found in various spots, I think more than two. Iceland gull and glaucous gull were both at LaSalle Park. Eastern meadowlark, this was a very recent one, found at Salt Fleet Conservation Area. That's a new conservation area on, I believe it's First Road East. So go check that out sometime. Lesser blackback gull at the Yacht Club. There was a king eider off of Sayers Park on Lake Ontario. Golden crown kinglet at Globe Park. That's a place I've been telling people to go during the winter because there's got to be stuff there. It's a really nice little hideaway for winter vagrants. Pacific loon, it's continuing, but I'll get to that in a moment. And there was potentially an American goshawk. I read on the Discord that people weren't sure of the provenance of that report, but I'll still put it here that in the RBG that was potentially there. American redstart and yellow rump warbler, both at the Joshua Valley treatment plant. You know, warblers, they like to hang out in treatment plants during the winter for all those delicious bugs that are still around when the water is churning. And northern parula in Sedgwick Forest. Of those, here's some photos of a few things. This photo is from Luke Fazio of the Harlequin ducks that were found out in Oakville. That was the lower two there, both males. This was a find of mine, myself and Barry Coombs, when we were doing the Flamborough Christmas bird count. And this was a potential bird of the month, but then I would be so biased because I found it, so I'm not going with it for that. The reason it would be a potential is because I was told by email, and I can't remember, I forget who emailed me this, I feel it was Dan McLean or something like that, emailed and said that this was actually the first marsh wren found in Wellington County during winter, during the winter birding period ever. So this is the first ever bird, just hanging out near the village of Crieff, Ontario. We were just randomly surveying there, and yeah, this bird popped up in an area with almost no birds around at all. It was cardinal and this, I think, at that spot, pretty much. Josh Vandermeulen found this on Christmas Day. This is the pine warbler I mentioned earlier, which I've gone and gotten a couple of photos of as well. It's busy working on some seeds, and when I was there last a couple weeks ago, it was about 8 days ago, so a week ago, there was, I think someone left a suet cake for it or something because it was really working on something on the ground. This is the eastern meadowlark that was found at Salt Fleet Conservation Area. This photo is by Jason Miller, who I believe is the finder. of this bird. This is one of those back of the camera photos, but eastern meadowlark, if they pop up, they're pretty easy to spot in the winter. I'll say that, bright and yellow. Especially, this would be a male, so they're especially easy to find. The Pacific loon is continuing. There is both a common loon and Pacific loon in Hamilton Harbor right now. So here's a little mini guide reminder of the difference between the two. It's got a blacker back, the Pacific loon. Some of them have this dark chin strap thing. I actually haven't gotten to see this specific bird. I've gotten to see and photograph the common loon though, so far. So I got to get out there more. This photo is by Murad Jabra. I lifted a lot of these out of eBird, but some from the Discord as well. I decided every once in a while I'm going to throw in a random interesting hotspot that maybe doesn't get enough people. And I know Jackson suggested this one to me. And it's somewhere I've gone quite a few times. I haven't eBirded it enough, that's for sure. I've been there a lot, I just haven't eBirded it a lot, but I got to do that more. So I'm one of the 25 in there. It's only 70 checklists so far, but 106 species found. This is at the corner, just off the corner of West 5th and Stone Church Road. And this whole park, you can go in and park there. And let me see if does the laser work in this? Uh-oh. Is that a button I shouldn't have pressed? Okay, we're good now. That's the blank button, I guess. Is there a laser? Oh, there's the laser. Yeah, there we go. All right. So you drive in here, and there's a little parking lot right here. And there's tennis courts, there's playgrounds. Now, this is all like kind of, I think this is a very old picture of when it was under development or something. There's a little building here, but there is trails down through here. So there is along this area here all paved trails, and then there's dirt trails down here, and there's dirt trails out here, and then there's some unofficial-ish trails that go into here, which are kind of interesting. It's an area full of black locust, of all things. It's a black locust forest. So, yeah. So there's a lot to explore in there. There's all kinds of habitat and different kinds of trails, depending on what you want to do. There's also a couple soccer fields there as well. So interesting little spot on the mountain. It's a little different. And there's a wetland down right here. This is all wetland. The trail goes around it. It's a stormwater pond, of course. So it's 2025 now, time for a New Year's list. But a little reminder that winter birding period is continuing. This starts in December 1st and ends February 28th or 29th, depending on the year. For those who like keeping track of winter birding stuff, that's a meteorological winter is what they call it, that period. Of course, during winter is also Project Feeder Watch for those who don't know it, and this is something you can sign up for online and check your feeder every day and submit data to help a scientific study of feeders. There is the WELO, which is the West End of Lake Ontario IBA survey, IBA being Important Bird Area, and these are surveys done every month in the winter of the ducks along there, and to keep track of the species in there. I feel like that's probably going to change to a KBA thing, because I think the IBA idea is phasing out into a KBA, but that's still the title of it right now. You can contact Chris, though, for information about that count. That's cmtrain@cmotherwell.com. The Great Backyard Bird Count is coming up in February, as every year, February 14th through 17th. This is another citizen science thing you can sign up for, just like Project Feeder Watch. This is more meant for general public as well too. So if you're not a birder, lister, counter, this is meant to be very, very friendly to just completely new to birding people. And it's considered a bit of an outreach for birding in general. And the Niagara Peninsula Hawk Watch is coming up. That'll be, I think March 1st is kind of the formal start of it, but sometimes there's a count day or two before that as they warm up. And of course, this year they're once again running a raptor identification course starting on January 27th. So you can contact Keith Dira for that. That's his email right there for registration. I believe they're doing Mondays and Thursdays for their, I think it's online entirely, like a Zoom call thing. And every month I like to highlight, some bird you can go find this month that may be fun for the month. So These snow bunting, here's a little map of all the spots they've been spotted as of the screenshot I took of this, which was a couple days ago. There's quite a few in the area, it looks like. Falls View Road, it sounds like, has been a good place to catch them. But driving out to Haldeman County, any areas with lots of open fields is a potential. So this is something I enjoy doing sometimes in the weekends. In the winters, go looking for snow buntings, because it's the one unique thing you don't get any other time of the year, but you generally need snow for them to be around. So, and right now we have not a lot of snow, but we got a lot of cold. So I think that's enough to have them around. So another thing that's going on soon, and this is brand new, the Trumpeter Swan Conservation Ontario, they're doing a Trumpeter Swan survey coming up on February 1st. This is their first ever. It'll be a 5-year survey, but they're just basically doing one date per year, February 1st. I'm guessing they're probably doing the first Saturday every February or something like that. I doubt it'll be fixed to the first. The purpose is to gauge the sustainability of Trumpeter Swan restoration in Ontario. So yeah, this is a neat little citizen science thing. I think their website address is a little long, but you can Google Trumpeter Swan Ontario and you'll get this, and you can sign up for it. And a little bit from our bird advocacy updates. So Birdsong Hamilton, last month we put out the call to ask, does anybody know who owns that property along Edge Lake? And it's been discovered. So the club executive is considering an approach to the land by the Land Trust program. So thank you for all your effort in finding that information. The goal is to protect this important migratory stopover. At City Hall, there's been an ongoing effort by the Ward 2 Councillor, Camlin Crouch, and Ward 12 Councillor, Greg Cassar, to make the City Hall bird-friendly. So this would mean putting up the stickers on the windows and all that to keep collisions from happening during the nighttime, and turning off lights, of course, too. The new protocols have now been introduced to reduce unnecessary nocturnal lighting, which of course endangers resident and migratory birds. As a next step, the potential to apply bird-friendly markers on the windows is being researched. In the past year, the windows have killed a redneck grebe and a Cooper's hawk, and likely many other birds that we just don't know about. So thanks to the councillors for getting involved in that. One more update. 2 weeks ago, the Hamilton Spectre published a front-page article about chimney swift roost on Main Street in Hamilton. Metrolinx has demolished a residential building, but is currently preserving the chimney for that. So Birdsong Hamilton's working with Swift Watch to monitor this roost, and you might remember we had a little talk about swifts a couple months ago, I believe it was. So if you were here for that, you know a bit about Swift Watch. So if you're aware of, and as we said that time, if you're aware of any chimney swift roosts in the HSA, please notify Birdsong Hamilton, and we can find out if they're already in the Swift Watch database or not. And I think Barry's here, so he can raise his hand, and he's the person to kind of reach out to about that. You can get an email address from him. I forgot to put that in here, so I'll have to do that next time. And here's a couple photos from that project that were sent to me. So they're keeping that chimney up. So some other local bird organizations, in case you're looking to join up in other ways. The Pipits, they do regular outings, and they're kind of a beginner-focused birding group. Anyone's welcome to join that, of course. There's Bird Friendly Hamilton Burlington, who works on advocacy for bird-friendly solutions. The Larks, which is a older group that I still have to get in contact with and get a better description, but older group, yes.
You're a marked man.
Yeah, I marked out. Someone did give me a name for a contact, and I need to get a proper description because I don't have a web page or anything to refer to. But they've been around quite a while. Yes, I do. They're an experienced bird group. We'll say that. Yes. There's the Feminist Bird Club Hamilton, Birdsong Hamilton, which of course you can contact Barry about that, and Niagara Peninsula Hawkwatch, which was mentioned earlier. So my field guide of the month I decided to throw in here is one I just picked up recently called the Gull Guide for North America. This thing is huge. This is 500 pages of gulls in North America, all made by one author. It is quite the extensive guide to gulls in North America. Here's a little quote I found from a blog article I came across about it. "This is an overall fine book with incredible and meticulous coverage. Every species found in North America is examined in great detail and accompanied by superb pictures." I believe the author took most of the pictures in this too. "Nestled on your shelf, it'll be the ideal reference to consult when coming home from a day of gull watching, remembering the discussions and controversies, the friendships made, the difference of opinion, and even the field marks observed." This book has like several pages on what they call gull topology, which is just the whole anatomy of what you could name every feather in it from this. This is a very extensive guide, I will say that. It is quite something. So keep an eye on that if you're really into gulls or want to really get into gulls. So some upcoming events. We got the winter tour of Hazelland Swamp coming up soon. So Jen Baker's leading this. This is our sanctuary that has recently been expanded. It was originally 50 acres, it's now 100. And it's in the Hazelland Swamp area, which is not too far from Beverly Swamp. This is on, I believe, Concession 6, just east of Brock Road, I want to say, in Flamborough, essentially. There are no trails in there. This is why we do a winter one, because it actually tends to be flooded most of the rest of the time of year, and right now it's nice and frozen, so you can actually walk through there. So the safest time to walk through is now when it's frozen, and possibly the end of summer into fall if it's a really dry year. You can walk around in there. Otherwise, it is a swamp. You might need hip waders to get in other times of the year. I've definitely done that myself. So, yeah, so we've expanded that property. We do these tours so you can get to see the property and understand what we're doing there. And yeah, it's a unique opportunity. It's quite a fun trip, I find. There's also this week, that was this Saturday, by the way, coming up. So this Sunday, there is a winter tree ID at the Arboretum. So Nadia Kavalin and friends are going to help with IDing trees by buds, barks, and branches. So it'll be a slow-paced walk. And expect some hilly terrain, wear some proper footwear, dress for the weather. Probably going to be cold. Probably going to want those cleats on your shoes because of the ice. Meeting at the pavilion of the big parking circle. Now this of course means that if you don't have a RBG pass, you're going to have to purchase parking pass to get in there. Just a heads up on that, but you can contact field events at hamiltonnature.org for more information. Our next general meeting for February will be about native bees. This is Dr. Susan Dudley, who I've worked with before actually at McMaster Forest, where they have been studying bees quite a bit there actually. There's quite an interesting story about the osmia bee going on in there, and I believe that's what she is going to be focusing on. They have a particularly, now it says here in the description it's common to hear, but it's actually a very rare bee that's common to hear, and it wasn't known until McMaster Forest was studied, I believe, that it was actually common in this area. I remember I was working with someone, I believe it was Sebastian there, who said that when he found them, he couldn't get people to believe that they were here, that were elsewhere in the world. They were like, no, it can't be that. So there's an interesting native bee, and it's actually expanding. It's doing really well here because of invasive European snails specifically, because they actually nest inside the snail shells. So it's a weird case where invasive is helping out a native. It's going to be an interesting talk, that's for sure. So don't miss that. And the next bird study meeting, we're going to have Pam McDonald from the Hamilton Master Gardeners newsletter and blog. She's also an HNC member as well. She's going to be talking about gardening with the bird's eye. So February is, the time when we start hoping that we can start on our garden in March. And so she's going to certainly help us with the ideas to improve our gardens with an eye towards birds. So tonight's speaker, Shey Smith, he'll be talking about Convergent, Flyways, Divergent Perspectives, a nature journey through my lens. And I came across Shey when I got referred to a podcast called Wildlife Photo Chat, I believe, and I listened to an episode that he was interviewed on. I found him very thoughtful and very interesting to listen to about his perspective. And when I was coming up with lists for speakers as I took on this role, he was floating to definitely top of the list. Because of that, a wonderful presentation, plus on top of that, just the having someone talk about local birds in such a different way, and who also, he'll get into this, I'm sure, is one of the pandemic birders, I believe, got started during the pandemic, so someone who's a little more newer to it than a lot of people in the room. And I always find it fascinating to see how new people start their journey in birding and the new perspectives we get from that. Because I know when I started, it was, it was overwhelming, and I did a lot of photography when I started as well, and it was really fun to learn through that. So with no ado, I'll allow Shey to come up here and take over, and we'll just spend a couple seconds probably setting up the tech here, so forgive me for a moment. All right. Let's see if we can put this here. I'll set this to the side. So I think we were just plugging that in, right? Oh, and you're going to want this as well, too, right? So this if you want the remote at all. But if you don't.
No, I don't think so.
All right.
Here we go.
Less complicated.
Yeah.
Power should be okay, but worked earlier, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe it's me.
You might need to leave the mode and re-enter it, but
Okay. Let's try that. Like close it all together, or just redo the?
just redo the presentation.
Make sure it is casting. There we go. Now it's gonna go.
Yep. Perfect. Oh, wait, that doesn't seem right.
No, that doesn't seem right. Wait.
Wait.
There we go.
There.
Now we're good.
All right.
This and this taps.
Sorry?
What does this do?
That just,
Okay. All right. No worries. If I want to.
clicker next.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I appreciate the invite from Rob and the rest of the committee. It's quite exciting to see all the things you do here in Hamilton/HSA. I'm not familiar with how the HSA came about, but what I do know is you have all the birds. And I am always envious when I check eBird and see all of the fantastic birds and the diversity of birds that you find here just in the Hamilton area and the greater HSA. So I came up with this title somewhat, I wouldn't say haphazardly, but I figured one of the reasons why I was invited here was to show pretty bird pictures. And so I will fulfill that. That will happen. But as I was going through and trying to decide which of the photos I wanted to share, I also had some other things that on my heart that I think I should also go through. And Rob kind of also guided me with, talking about my experience about getting into birding and being one of the, this group of pandemic birders, which I don't call myself per se, and I don't have a problem with the label, but I do understand that it is quite different because it was a large group of people who came into birding at one time, which is probably very unusual. So this title about Flyways is really a way to describe how everything kind of came together for me, not just in birding, but I feel like in life in general. But Flyways exist because they are kind of these natural routes that help guide birds to where they want to go. And they have nice little pit stops of places to rest and then continue on. And they're kind of very efficient routes that don't have a lot of things in the way and really help birds get to their breeding areas. So while I am a pandemic birder, my journey into nature and photography, I think, has been a lifetime one. I have always been fascinated by nature, always been obsessed with cameras, and so when the opportunity came and I found something to really put my creativity into, it things kind of fell into place for me. So my entry into the field was very late. You know, I'm in my, well, I don't know if any of my students are watching, but I am in my early 40s. I don't like to tell them anything about me. You know, they're so good at like Googling stuff now, and I just don't, I like to just keep my teacher life private and stuff. But you know, it is what it is. So, I am a secondary teacher, so I teach high school, mostly business, well, all business right now. So that's my vocation, my career, my profession. But in terms of my nature journey, it's been a long time in the works. And I start with this image because, one, it's one of my favorite birds. I think there's just one of the most gorgeous things I've ever seen with wings. And I couldn't believe that, you know, coming from my native home of Jamaica to Canada, that I would find something this stunning compared to the things that, you know, we have back home. But I also want to start out with this one because it's a gorgeous image, and we're also going to go through some terrible images in a bit here, and I want to give you a little bit to hold on to. So it's been a very fulfilling journey, and I will say that while we are going to, I am going to talk about birding, and I'm going to talk about photography, but I'm also going to talk about my experience and my perspective and my opinions on my experience, which you don't have to agree with. And I hope that in the end that we can learn something from each other. I hope that we can have something to think about after we leave, and that we can at least appreciate these birds that we're all here to gather around and enjoy and experience. At any point in time, if you do want to ask a question, please just raise your hand so I know who you are. And online as well, if anyone online has questions, I can pause and answer questions. I don't mind being interrupted at all. Helps to stop me from rambling, which I tend to do. You can ask my students. I complain all the time. Anyway, so in this idea of these flyways, my nature journey and photography journey were separate, but not quite together, right? Nature is something I did when I was a kid, when I was, you know, playing around in the backyard, you know, trying to catch lizards and, you know, watch them drop their tails and run, or, you know, the slugs that are on the porch, or the bullfrogs underneath the house, the wasps that were on the side of the house, and I'd throw stuff at them and then run like heck because, you know, they were mad and angry. But the kicker is, I'm terrified of bugs, right? I'm self-admittedly just horribly terrified of bugs. Anything that's bigger than an ant, and that's always been true. Even butterflies, like as a kid, just like a butterfly coming anywhere close to me freaked me out. So that posed quite a challenge, you know, when you wanted to go out and find birds and take photos and such. So you had to learn to overcome that. And as a kid, I was a little, not the most courageous thing, a little spacey, a little daydreamy, and also a little smaller. I was 2 years younger than everybody else, and because because I didn't go outside much, I think I probably didn't have a lot of close friends, or at least that's the reason I think why. So coming to Canada wasn't a huge change for me because I didn't have, other than my family and my cousins and stuff that were back there, I was looking forward to it. Unfortunately, I can't say that Canada gave me a very warm welcome, and that's not just because we came in December, which I don't know why we would do that. Go from 30 to minus 30, but I'll get into that a little bit more. But all of these things have kind of impacted me on my journey. But in terms of my obsession with the cameras, I remember that my dad had a little Minolta film camera that I think he did use at one point, but I used to play around with that all the time, even after we came to Canada, which was many years ago, I'll say that. And so when it came time for me to get back to my camera, I finally kind of fulfilled that burning desire. And I was the kind of person who just would take the camera everywhere. Right? Like I was that annoying person that had a camera at dinner, and had a camera walking down the street, and I had a camera at school or wherever I was going. I had the camera and I was taking pictures. And I would kind of get the eye roll from all the people that I was with, but at the same time, they loved the pictures afterwards, right? You know, they complain about it, but they love to see the photos after. So me and cameras have gone a long way. So I want to talk about the kind of beginnings of my journey and how I dealt with overcoming like things like these that we don't see. I can't do this justice, by the way. Like if you've never seen one of these, they're massive. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a big scaredy cat. I'm saying that because they are huge. And I was standing a very long ways away with a 100mm lens, which is all I had at the time. But I still admire them because I still think it's awesome. I still think they're cool. I want to get closer. I want to see more details. I want to take lots of pictures, but I also don't want to be near them. It's a very trying conundrum. So, if I think back to taking photos of stuff, you know, I had a little Polaroid camera. I had all little point and shoot camera. But when I bought my first DSLR in 2010, I think, I was at a point where I think I was pretty much dreaming about one every night. I could not sleep, and I said to my wife at the time, I said to my wife, I can't do this anymore. I need to go buy a camera. So I didn't blow the budget. I bought a cheap one, and it came with a lens or two, and I bought another cheap lens, and it was great. And I did everything I could with it, and I took it everywhere, and I did whatever I could. And at some point, it kind of didn't serve its purpose anymore, and I got a little bit better one. You can see there's a trend that's coming. And this one is a full frame, entry level, did the job, and gave me cleaner pictures, less noise, yada, yada. I won't get into any of the technical stuff. And then I thought, okay, so, thinking about this presentation, and okay, yes, I've always had a love for the camera, but did I have a love for birds? And so I decided to go back into my photo archives and see what I could see. And what I found were birds. And I have memories that will live forever. So this photo I took from a cruise ship when my brother was getting married. And the morning of his wedding, I look outside and there are dozens of birds diving into the sea. And my mind is blown because I've only seen this stuff on National Geographic. And so I run inside, get my camera with my little 100mm, but they're flying like right beside the ship. They're flying eye level, they're flying high, they're flying low. And I remember, because I watch a lot of nature documentaries too, that these frigatebirds, they don't hunt. They just steal. They're parrots. Their feathers don't have the oils that keep them water resistant, like the boobies do. So they just wait for they were brown and masked boobies in this flock, and they just wait for their opportunity to grab a fish from one of the other birds. And so they were just soaring there, and I was watching. I stood there watching them. I was also supposed to be the photographer for the wedding that was happening, so that became a little bit. I was kind of running behind, but it was priorities, right? Now I get it, and I think people now at the time they would kind of forgive me, but back then, no. But it was through this experience that when I got back to Canada, I had to know what these birds were. So I decided, okay, is there anything that can help me? Because I didn't know where to begin. And I found this website that led me to this app called Merlin. And Merlin was able to give me an ID, and I said, my mind was blown. It told me what the bird was. I described the bird, and everything was great. And then I'd seen eBird, and, I didn't spend a lot of time on there, but I think I may have signed up for an account and then left it at that. So that was 2019. But then, looking back and through my photos, I started to see like more birds. It was actually to the point where it was getting ridiculous, where there was always a bird. Like whenever there was a set of pictures, if I looked hard enough, there was a bird. This is at my cousin's wedding, 2007, and I looking at a picture of just leaves. First of all, this is really cropped in, and I'm like, why would I take a picture of just this like weird shrub? And then I zoom in, I'm like, oh, there's a bird there, which is now my oldest bird on record on my eBird, because I can ID that as a bananaclid. As soon as I saw it, I was like, that's a bananaclid, I know it. And some people don't do that kind of stuff, but I do. If I see a bird and I know it's a bird and I take a photo of it, even if I don't know what it is, I'm recording that on my life list. So that bananaclid is now my oldest lifer. But going back in the photos actually got a little ridiculous, because even birds that were just supposedly in their own privacy of their own home nesting, I had to have a picture of this dove nesting in this weird place, and I found birds everywhere. And I didn't want to keep putting more of them in, but you get the idea that birds have always been intriguing to me. And even thinking about we call them doctor birds back in Jamaica, but the streamer tails and how they hover with their beautiful tails and drinking nectar and all that. That was always fascinating to watch. So learning about how to bird and how to take photos has been quite challenging. It is something that I've spent a lot of time on, and if you ask anybody in my family, they might tell you that they're kind of over the whole me watching videos of a man talking about bird songs, but that's what I learned. So it was unfortunately after the Christian Cooper incident in the spring of 2020 that piqued my interest in birding as a hobby. After my initial horror of a white person threatening to weaponize the police against a black man for asking her to leash her dog like she was supposed to, I then started to ask the question of, or to ponder whether black people bird watched, because I had never heard of that before, and I had no idea, and I never considered it. So I started to look into it, and then I found eBird, and I found other sites, and I found birders online that were black, and my mind was kind of blown. But still, the idea of me going out and into the wide world of bugs to go find birds was not very appealing. And I certainly wasn't going to do it with the little 100mm camera that I had. But amazingly, there was a fund that was started out of that incident that was started by two white birders in the States. They raised $35,000 to send a pair of binoculars to anybody who self-identified as black that wanted a pair of binoculars for free. And I said, do you ship to Canada? They said no. But Vortex was very kindly obliged to, they obliged to ship anyone from Canada who wanted one. They would send them a pair of Vortexes. And that's what happened. And if it wasn't for that, I would have never stepped outside to go bird watching. I used that to, and it wasn't even about the idea of using the binoculars, because I used my camera a lot too. And at the time I only had the 100mm. But just the idea that, okay, now what's my excuse, right? I don't have binoculars, can't see them, they're too far away. It was one less reason for me not to go out. Now all I had to do is overcome myself, which was the fear of the bugs, but also more than that, even the fear of me going out and doing something that somebody who looked like me doesn't do. which is a weird thing to say if you don't live that experience. But I didn't like the idea of me going out and using binoculars in my local area where there might be houses or other things, was kind of a fear for me. You know, what if somebody asked me what I was doing? What would I would say? Bird watching? Who's going to believe me? So that made me think, well, maybe if I had a lens, then I could say I was taking pictures, and that would feel better, and they would believe that more, right? This is the way my brain works, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit too. But so I convinced myself through that way to buy a lens, and that way I could go bird watching. Because what happened was, I took a picture of a robin in my backyard, because I wasn't brave enough to go outside. But I took it through the back window, and when I did that, I was amazed because I got a picture that's not showing up right now. There we go. Okay, no, that's not the picture. That's not the picture. This is the picture, right? Like that's it. No. So the 100 millimeter wasn't cutting it, and I knew that, right? It wasn't going to work. But I was still determined, though. I was like, I can do this. Let me just go outside. How about that? I'll go outside. So I went outside. I went down to a local trail, and there's a bridge, and there's blackbirds there, and you know how they are. And this is June, so they're all feisty and whatever, and they come right up to you. And I said, okay, I'll do that. So I walked onto the bridge. There's the blackbird. He comes right over to me, and he's like almost in my face. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a picture. And I did. And he was still like I couldn't believe how far away he looked in the picture. So I thought, okay, this is stupid. I'm going to give up. I can't do this. And then something amazing happened, amazing to me, but amazing, nonetheless. I walk off the bridge, and then I see this yellow thing dart out of a bush, and I thought, okay, that's not a goldfinch. I know what those are. I had been studying birds a little bit, and so I took a picture with my little lens, and behold, it was a yellow warbler. Okay, this is not the picture either, guys. I thought, all right, I won't do that again. Okay. This was the picture, okay? It's 100 millimeters, it's not that big. You can't get anything. Okay, there is a bird in there, I promise you. I don't know, you can see it, it's there. Okay, you can see it, it's there. Okay, I'm gonna get a little closer. Okay, wait, there it is, it's there, okay? So, and my mind was blown because I thought you had to go into like the backwoods or climb a mountain to find a warbler. I had no idea. And like, this is almost my backyard, like 5 minutes down the road. It was amazing, this is crazy. So I'm like, okay, I need a better picture than this. This is not it. I have to get birds. And so that drove me to buy this lens. These are the vortexes that were sent to me. They have since deceased, but the shell of them remains. I asked them, so Vortex has a lifetime warranty. These were damaged beyond repair. They've been very good to me. But I, as a photographer, have put them through a lot. But Vortex was nice enough to let me keep it without the elements inside, because it has that sentimental value to me. And then they gave me a brand new pair of Vortexes, which is crazy. It's amazing what they do. So now that I had my 600 mil lens, I could, do some work. Now, I'm gonna spare you any more bad photos, and we'll go into some better stuff. But I started to realize, number one, the light was important. I couldn't just go out in the middle of the day and take photos, because I won't show you what I've gotten at that point. But I had to take the experience I had with photography and then adjust it to wildlife, just kind of turning the dial a little bit. So this is a month after I got that lens. And people said to me at the time, I don't understand how you're progressing so fast. You must be so like amazing. And I'm like, not really. I just know how to use my camera, which is the biggest step when you're getting started. There's a lot of dials, and there's a lot of things, and you got all this exposure stuff, and aperture and shutter speed, that's a lot. So if you're getting started and you're wondering why your photos aren't progressing quick, it takes time. I had a head start, right? I had a camera on my hip for years, for the most part. So a little story about this spot. I really treasured this spot a lot. It's a little lot in Brampton, but it unfortunately is now demolished for housing. It bred savanna sparrows, grasshopper sparrows, clay-colored sparrows, vesper sparrows, all in this one spot. And I wish that something that's on my heart is to get more involved in conservation, because there could have been a way to save this habitat, I feel. And it's very saddening that it's not going to be there anymore. So I continued to learn how to get close to birds, or at least to get sharp pictures of birds, and get through the basics. And then this time I'm watching every YouTube video that possibly exists that mentions the word bird, whether it be bird photography or bird sounds or bird pictures. I'm learning about birds from other countries because I've already watched all the ones in North America twice. And so I'm just soaking all of this in, and it is 2020, so the pandemic has hit, and there is nowhere to go. Yes, so that makes me a pandemic birder, yes. But the reason why the label, I feel, I don't label myself like that, because I do feel like it was inevitable anyway. But I'm very grateful for the timing, not necessarily grateful for the pandemic, but the timing of how everything happened. So fast forward a couple years, I've really trying to maximize the gear I have, because I don't have a lot of money to like throw around at very expensive equipment. I've got 2 young kids. My wife is on mat leave at the time, and I can't justify spending tens of thousands of dollars. So I said, I'm going to maximize this gear as much as I can, and only when it's holding me back will I upgrade. Because there's this kind of draw to think that if I just buy that next thing, I'll get better, right? Just like when you're a kid and you see your favorite athlete with the new shoes or new skates, you think, okay, if I buy that, then I'll play better. But I knew that wasn't the case. And of course, there are things that you can do to help yourself, that the gear can help you to do, but there's a lot that you can do with what you had. And so that was my motto. But I did reach a point eventually where I felt like I was being held back too much, to the point that I was being frustrated and not enjoying the experience. And so when I pled with my wife and begged her to let me upgrade, actually, no, there wasn't any begging or pleading. She was just like, yeah, you should do it. So I was so grateful for that. By the way, these are birds. Okay, don't argue with me. These are birds. Yeah. One thing that also happened was I became very rebellious in my photography, and I decided that I was going to ignore every rule that people told me about what I should and should not be doing, and what isn't a bird photo. So this morning, these trumpeter swans were lying on the ice. It was brutally cold. It was almost minus 30, and everything was just frozen. And I saw the sun coming up, and this haze that was lifting up from the ice, which, if anybody's a science person, I feel like it was sublimation that was happening here, where it's turning from ice straight to vapor. And it was just amazing to see it. And as the sun was rising, I could see that this was about to happen, that it was about to get essentially lit on fire. So I just waited, and I was snapping photos the whole time, because I didn't know how fast it was going to happen. And then I was desperately trying to find a bird to get a photo of, because the scene was happening. There was not waiting for anyone, and there was, tiny little specks way off in the distance, and I saw these rocks. It's like, what if there was a bird on those rocks? And then I took a picture, and I looked closer, and the birds had these yellow tags. And the rocks had these yellow tags, and the rocks were birds. And I was like, well, this is what I have. I can't let this, I'm not going to see a scene like this for a long time, so I'm going to take the photo. I composed it, and I love it, despite what people on eBird think. After that, I did upgrade my gear. It is a little pay to play. There are some things you can do with gear that you can't do with other gear. And so it allowed me to do more of the creative things that I wanted. But still, was not going to get me where I wanted to go. There were some things I still had to overcome. Right? I still had to go places that I didn't want to go, and I still had to do things that I didn't want to do. So as much as this is a skill development journey, it's also kind of it is a mental health journey, and I'll talk about that too. And so now that I had this lens and I had to use it responsibly, I put it through the worst of the worst. See, when you buy something that expensive, it needs to be rugged enough to do all kinds of things. You can't baby it. I had to baby my other lens because it was plastic. This thing is metal, so I was able to push it more and put it through some stuff. Funny story about this. I pull up to the spot where snow buntings are being reported, and there's a guy who is just collecting the snow buntings and put them in his truck. And so I'm just like, and he's parked at the house, so I'm very confused. My first initial thought is he's going to cook them because he's bringing them to his truck that's parked in his house. And so I go over to him and I'm just asking, like, I'm concerned because there's almost no snow buntings left for me to shoot. So, like, what's going on? So he's like, he's banding them. I'm like, oh, okay, thank God. Okay, all right, great. I'm like, do you mind if I just get some photos before you get them all? He's like, yeah, sure, go ahead, okay. I'm like, oh, that's great, because it's a farm field, and I'm not going to step on anyone's property. So, it's literally like 6 feet of snow, though. So I have to like belly crawl to get to where he's laid down some corn. You can't see the trap that he set for them with the corn. That's how he's catching them. So I leave that out, and they're there, and the wind is howling. There's no trees anywhere, and so I'm like, this is perfect because this is what I want now. Like now, I'm beyond just getting a sharp photo. I want atmosphere. I want mood. I want the worst conditions ever because that means my photos are going to be different than what you see anywhere, and that's something that I had to come to the realization of. That is, if I take the same photos everybody else does, then my photos just looks like everybody else's. So I have to be willing to do something different, and sometimes to a fault. But I belly crawl on the snow because I tried to walk and I went like straight down, and that didn't work. And I carry a lot of mass. That's I should have known better, but belly crawling worked to a certain extent, and my lens held up pretty good. And so I go and I get some shots, and I come back, and the guy's gone. I'm like, where'd he go? He drove off. He drove away, actually, and I thought he lived at the house. So I don't think he lived there. I think I might have trespassed. My apologies if you're watching and I was on your property. I had no idea. He told me, though. He told me to go, and he said he didn't care, and I thought that was fair game. And then, so I began to also develop a love for water birds and shorebirds, and that became something that was very gripping for me. Grebes, I don't know what it is about them. They're elegant, they're graceful, not when they're walking, but in the water, and I love taking photos of them. Shorebirds as well, especially plovers, because they are so, they give and they take. They give you amazing close looks, but then they also will run in the most random direction ever. They'll run away, and then you think they're gone, and then they'll come back to you right in your face. And if you're not ready, then you miss a shot. This situation, this is my first time, so this was a lifer for me. I went up to Wasaga because I heard there were plovers there, and at this point, I hadn't really traveled much outside of, I think my first year I really just did Brampton and Mississauga and Caledon, just Peel. And then every year after that, I seemed to be going a little further out. So next year I went to Toronto. That was like, from Brampton, that's a mission. It's pretty far. And by 2022, 2 years later, now I'm driving up to Wasaga Beach, right? That's a 2-hour drive, right? So for me, that was a big deal. So but that's how far you have to go to see a piping plover, right? I was definitely not going to see one in Brampton or Mississauga. So I get there, and in my first 2 years, I felt a lot of pressure to like get a shot. Like if I went out, I had to get a shot. If I came back home and I didn't have a shot, then I was bummed. But I really wanted to change that because it wasn't enjoyable for me anymore if I had that mentality. And so part of the mental health journey for me was developing patience and gratitude. Gratitude for whatever experience I had, whether I had a good shot or not, and the patience to allow it to happen. Because what I didn't want to do was to become, how do I say this? Some people who live and die by the IG likes and comments, right? The Instagram likes and comments, and they want the good photos so that they can get the accolades for it and the pat on the backs and the oh you're so amazing. Like I didn't want that to be my fuel, because if we're going to be honest with myself, nobody on Instagram has ever said your photos are terrible. Right? Nobody on Facebook, definitely not my mom or my family, will ever tell me that my photos, and good on them, right? So I had to not live and breathe on that. I needed to do it for myself, and I needed to be happy with what I did, even if I didn't create what I wanted to create. So when this incident happened, and they have it all taped off anyway, you can't get in there. Birds can get in and out how they want. So I was on the boardwalk, and I saw, his name's Fudge. At the time, it was Fudge. And so he saw me, and there's two of us there. He saw two of us, and one of the things I picked up on really early is bird behavior. So I'm always watching what the birds are doing so that I know what kind of shot I'm likely to get. Because if it's a feisty one, I could get close, or they could just throw away, or go away. Or if they're nonchalant, then I might be able to push and get a little closer. So he was very inquisitive, and I said to the other photographer, we need to get down because something's about to happen. So we laid down, and he just kept coming. He just kept coming and just kept coming. And right here, he's probably 6-7 feet in front of me, and he's just peeking, and he jumps up onto the boardwalk. So close I couldn't even focus. I had to back up to get him in the shot. And I got some really cool shots of that moment, but it was, and after that, he couldn't care less. I didn't exist. I didn't exist to him at all. And he was amazing to see him chase everything. Barn swallows, nope, you can't come close to my nest. Herring gulls, nope, none of them. He was a fantastic, protector of his nest. And I think they did well that year. Excuse me. Which isn't surprising. And he didn't come back the next year or the year after. They think that he got eaten by a merlin. But I always remember that experience because it taught me the importance of letting it come to me and not pushing. I even got, they had 3 chicks, and I even got a couple of chick photos too. So I continued in my pursuit of shorebirds and warblers, which are the things that excited me, and just shocked at how much I could get just within like 15 minutes of my house, right? Like, here's a leased sandpiper in the middle of Brampton, which, by the way, this spot has produced a dowitcher, Wilson's phalarope, yellowlegs, all kinds of stuff, Wilson snipe. Under threat, nonetheless. I don't know what it will be this year. But I really was passionate about getting to know Peel, and even my photographer friends joke about the fact that I don't go anywhere out of Peel. If they say that there's a bird over there, and I ask, well, but that's not in Peel, why would I go there? Right? Just as a laugh. But I did slowly start to expand. And the HSA has been very, very good to me. One of the experiences I'll never forget is this Nelson Sparrow in Oakville. I went there the year before this and stood there for 3 hours and didn't even hear a click, nothing, no chipping. And it was miserable, feet were wet, and I swore I would never come back to that place. Because I also missed a Dixaso on the way out that I didn't know was there. And so I missed out on 2 great birds, would have been 2 lifers, and I said, I hate this place, I'm never coming back. And then I came back. Because the bird came back the next year. Maybe the same bird, I don't know. This time I was more patient. And so I was with a friend, we waited, and it was amazing to see this thing just run under the grass like a mouse and pop up when it felt like it. And it was a rainy day that day. And when I took this picture, it was watching us. We were just standing there looking at the photos we got because it was in a branch. Not great, but then it was just perched right there, not moving. And so we both kind of took our angles, and I was able to shoot through some grass and get a clear shot. Continuing on, exploring my local areas, but also, expanding out and trying to get like new birds. Now the birder in me was kind of also taking over, and this has been a tug of war in my journey, is the birder and the photographer. Because if you've talked to people who do both, you can tell, they will tell you that you can't do both at the same time. You can't be a good birder in the sense of getting lots of different species on a checklist and being a good photographer at the same time. They require 2 different skill sets. If I'm birding, I'm in birder mode, I am hearing a bird, seeing a bird, and checking it, and then I'm moving on to go get the next one before it stops singing or it stops feeding and I can't see or hear it anymore. If I'm in photographer mode and I'm looking for a bird, I'm staying put. And I'm waiting for this bird, and I might have to wait 3 hours, 4 hours, maybe longer to get the shot that I want. And I'm going to see less species, or species. Which one is it? Okay, hands up for species. Okay, hands up for species. Okay. I told you I was going to cause trouble. All right. I know, I can't help it, right? I can't help it. And this spot in Oshawa that is kind of far has also been very good to me. Ducks is also another recurring theme, as I seem to take on new groups of birds that I love, and ducks are another one. Very painful though, because they don't like people. I don't know, maybe it's us shooting and hunting them thing that has something to do with it. So they're very skittish normally and very hard to get photos of. And green-winged teals are probably, if not at the top, close to the top of the list for me. So I'm kind of going in chronological order now, kind of picking out photos that are special to me and I think are pleasing to look at, like these uncommon visitors to Peel in December 2022 that gave me a nice look, but very difficult to get photos of them otherwise, or even see them in Peel, usually just flyovers. And I began to, feel stuff for birds, which is kind of strange, right? This red-shouldered hawk, this picture is from December 2022, but I believe that this was the same hawk that also overwintered in Brampton the year before. And when I saw it the first time, had no idea what it was, because I'd never seen one before. It was a juvenile. It had a really defined eye stripe that I thought was significant, but turned out not to be. And when I got a decent picture of it and looked it up, I thought, I think this is an immature red-shouldered, but I had no idea. So I got, of course, the Discord experts to help me out, and they ID'd it. And it came back to the exact same spot the next year, which was really cool. But I also felt a need to keep watching to see if it was going to be okay, right? Just driving by and looking to see if it was there, and it was doing fine. I even got a picture of it catching a mouse or a vole or something in a field, and so it was doing fine. It did not come back the year after, but it was nice to see it in its full adult plumage the year after. And then I started to get more interested in raptors, and I'd never really chased them because, they really don't like people, and they're hard to find, particularly owls. I've never been a big owl person in terms of, I love owls, I think they're wonderful, but because of the hoopla surrounding them and the chaos that sometimes ensues, I usually go the other direction. And I usually just say that owl's probably better off with the 10,000 photos that it's going to get, and it doesn't need my lens. So it's always special when I find an owl and there's nobody else there. And then I never tell anybody. And then I hide the eBird report for a year. That doesn't, I don't like the idea of doing that, because I really believe that, especially for newer birders, that more information is better. But my friends who are more into owls, I see the pesky messages they get about, hey, do you know where this owl is, or what this location is? And I don't want to have to deal with that. So I'm fine just in living vicariously through the photos of other people's owls, or other people's photos of owls, rather than getting my own, but I always do cherish seeing them. So in addition to learning how to be patient and focus, or be patient in the field, I also had to deal with a lot of my own kind of inner challenges that I was having. Birding and being in nature really helped me to, I think, stay grounded, not in the sense of my ego, but literally being present in a moment at a time when I needed it the most. My love for photography had, for a period of time, slowly waned and almost disappeared. And my camera kind of just collected dust for a while until my kids were born, and that gave me more reason to take photos. But my mental health was still declining at the time, even though I didn't know it. So the idea of me being a pandemic birder is cool too, but it came to me at a time when I really needed help. And so being out in nature and being present in where I was and not in my head and thinking of the things that I was thinking and the worries that I was having and the troubles and the issues, and just being able to put all that away was really healing for me. And there's something about being in nature that does that for me. So I spent, and I'm just going to go through pretty pictures while I talk. They have not necessarily anything to do with what I'm talking about. But I spent a lot of time discovering myself and who I was and who I wanted to be, and things that I didn't like about myself, and trying to figure out what I wanted my life to be and how I was going to get it. I had been diagnosed with depression, anxiety, inattentive ADHD, all of which I had very, what's the word I'm looking for? Not mythical, unfactual beliefs about. I said a lot of things about those conditions before I myself had to go through it and understood what was happening to me. And so the things that were running through my head while I'm in nature were things that helped me to focus on the now, and not what I did, not even what I was going to do, just being there and standing there and just listening, just hearing nothing sometimes. I can't tell you how nice that is for somebody whose brain is always going. And even when I wasn't in a forest or somewhere secluded, being near the water was also very good for me, which is probably a reason why I like shooting ducks so much. There's something about water that just does it. It's very calming, it's very relaxing. Just the sound of it is very freeing. So being on the water, being near the water, gets me in trouble sometimes because I've rolled my camera gear into the water a few times. So luckily it's survived. But I'm always interested in finding different ways of shooting waterfowl, because it's very difficult to shoot a duck that's just sitting there on the water and making that interesting and different. So when this long-tailed duck was diving, it's a frigid day, and I noticed when it came up, it was spitting something out of its mouth. I was like, what's going on? So I got the next time I did it, I got a photo, and I was amazed to see its breath come out when it came up out of the water. And then these grebes, who were doing their courting ritual, which is such a cool sound to hear in the spring. Like, it's one of my favorite things to hear. I have a stormwater pond down the road from me, about 5 minutes, and the last 3 years, grebes have tried to nest there. So they're definitely expanding their range. They're in several ponds in Brampton now. And unfortunately, the year before, and the other thing about learning from birds too is how resilient they are. These grebes nested there, they tried to nest 7 times. And each time their nest got destroyed or eaten by heron or flooded, and they just kept going. And, you know, that taught me something too. Like, they don't even have hands, right? And they build these ridiculous nests. They have no hands, they can't walk. Like, you know, they look ridiculous, right? And look what they're doing, right? And what is it? And I can't face, you know, some bugs, right? You know what I mean? Like, I can't get dirty, right? And here these birds are doing these amazing things with very little. And so, you know, I kind of use that as fuel to keep me going. Now, time is running quickly, so I'll try to wrap up here. So I'm still, you know, always taking in what's happening around me and watching the birds' behavior and watching what they're doing. And they're watching me, which is cool. And that feeling of that acceptance you get when you're there and the bird is there and the bird knows you're there and it's just cool with you is like, is a special moment that I always look for and treasure. And that's when I get my best shots. It's not me chasing the bird and trying to get closer and it's flying away and I go after it and stuff. No, like you don't get good photos that way. The birds are stressed. They want nothing to do with you. I want the birds that are maybe just too starving to care, but you know, at least, you know, I'm not disturbing them. And this blackpoll warbler was just like that. And it was feisty. It was not cool. There was another magnolia warbler that tried to feed in the same tree, and it chased it every single time. It knew it couldn't do that with me, so it was just, you know, whatever. I also wasn't eating its bugs, so I think it was fine. It tolerated me in that way. So one thing I'm always trying to think of, you know, what is it that I'm missing from my photography, and some things, you know, feeding behavior, something that I want to get more of, action shots, like this piping plover. There's a little spider there that it found and just quickly ran over to gobble it up. I'm absolutely obsessed with this tricolored heron, and it's one of my favorite birds. And I'm so glad to get to see one without having to go down to Florida, which was nice. And just looking for birds everywhere, because they're not, they're so resilient that they find a ways to survive. Not all of them. Some of them are very sensitive, but many of them can exist in all kinds of places. And this bird, though, drove me crazy because I came here looking for an eastern meadowlark that somebody had reported, which I realized were probably just starlings. And then I heard a willow flycatcher, and I thought, okay, I love flycatchers. Again, another species, a group of birds that I'm into. And so I'm looking for the willow flycatcher, it's not there. And then I hear a house finch. Like, okay, there's the house finch, not there, okay. Then I heard a blue jay, and then I realized that I was being mocked by the mockingbird. And I sat there and I recorded about 9 different birds that this mockingbird just rattled through. It was beautiful to see, it drove me crazy, but eventually it settled down under this perch. The sign was a perch, and I took the shot, and I do like how that turned out. So I'm traveling further now, going a little bit further out, and also going further out of my comfort zone, and doing things that I don't necessarily like doing. Like this bird, for example, when I found it in the daytime, the sun was terrible, and I tried to get shots, but there were too many people there, which I understand. And I put it on Discord, and I let everybody know, because it's not a common bird for Peel. So when everyone left, I came back. And I waited, and this is after the sun had gone down, and patience paid off, because it settled down right in front of me and gave me whatever amount of shots that I took. And it was gone the next day. And so light is always something that I'm chasing, and with the right gear, I realize now how to use it in its most powerful way, which is right at the edge of not being able to shoot anymore, right? And that is, again, one of those places where not a lot of people are shooting, so that will get me the most interesting shots. Now I'm thinking not just in terms of where I shoot and how I shoot, but even like when I shoot. So getting up super bright early to get that first light, or super late to get that last light, became very important to me. But also to not forget the creativity part of it, right? To not leave out my imagination. And when I saw this bird, I thought, it looks like it's skating. So, turn up the exposure, try not to blow any highlights, and turn the water, and it's in water, right? Turn the water white. So as I continue to bird, and for me, I take pictures of even the most mundane stuff for most people, like sparrows and thrushes and birds that are not necessarily the most exciting birds. I take pleasure in making those birds beautiful, or at least putting them in a beautiful scene. I think they are beautiful. I think that I want to kind of showcase that they are. And so as I continue to push, though, sometimes I push to limits that are too close. So my physical limits are one thing, because I'm getting up there in age, and some of you might laugh at me, but I get that. And so when I decided to climb down Wimbrel Point, where all the rocks are, see, all the smart birders stayed up top. But you can't be a good photographer and a good birder at the same time. A good birder stays up top. The photographer who wants the shot goes down to the bottom of the cliff, where it's cold and icy, and with crashing waters that threaten to wash you away. I thought I was going to fall in at one point. But I'd never seen a purple sandpiper before, and I didn't know when I was going to see one again, and I knew that I needed something better than a shot of the top of its head. So I did that, and I was rewarded, and it didn't seem to care about me at all. It just kept coming towards me and flew within 3 feet of me. I couldn't even get a shot. It got so close, and then after it left and the sun started to go down, I said I should get out of here. Continuing in my journey, I also began to have more interactions with the community, more experiences with people, and learning from people, and learning about bird behavior, learning about different spots, learning about different techniques. I've, at this point, kind of exhausted all the videos on the internet, but there are so much more to learn about from all of you and everybody else. So that is kind of where I'm at right now. But at this point in April 2024, my birding and photography starts to slow down for a number of reasons. One is likely my mental health challenges that flare up here and there, and different stuff that I'm going through, but also having to deal with some other issues that happened to me in the field. And one of the things that I realize from the get-go, and I've always realized, is like this Ross's goose, I stand out. Right? I look different. And that's something that many people who don't live the experience will understand, but don't see the impact of it because it doesn't happen to them. One incident I can talk about was when I was taking this photo, and I have a post about this on my Instagram. This park is notorious for off-leash dog walkers. You must leash your dog at this park, that's what the rules say. And this day in particular was very bad. On my way in, there was probably 4 or 5 of them. On my way out, there was more. And here I am trying to get a photo of this pine siskin, and a dog is like right in front of me, barking at me. And so I look around, and there's no owner, there's no leash. And they come around the corner finally, and I said, "Can you please leash your dog?" They didn't like that. And a lot of unpleasant things were said. When a black person is interacting with a white person, I'm just going to say it straight like that, and a white person tells you to call the cops, I'm not going to call the cops. You understand me, right? So when that happened, I realized, okay, it's one of these situations. Now, he didn't know, and I wasn't even aware, that at the time I was testing out a new mic that I had. And I was running Merlin the whole time while this interaction was going on. If I didn't have that, I don't think anybody would actually believe what happened. So I posted that recording on my Instagram for people to see and hear what happened. And at the end, one of his final hurrahs, in addition to telling me to go back home to where I came from, he called me a green card word that starts with a B and ends with a D, that insinuated that I didn't have a dad, and I was here to somehow get a green card because my mom had gotten pregnant to stay here or something like that, is the idea. And I've been a citizen of this country for over 30 years. So for me to have him come and tell me that was painful. More not for me personally, but the idea that people still think this way. And I pay taxes just like he does. It's same county. And so that was painful. And as much as I hate to admit it, I have not been back to that park since. I also hate to admit that CVC has done nothing about it. I brought it, I filed a complaint. I even took a picture of his license plate. Now, some people said I should have called the cops. Well, in my position, being out in the middle of Caledon, no, I'm not going to do that. And I don't know what I would say, actually, to be honest. So I thought the right thing to do would be to file a complaint with CVC. They put cameras up. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Another incident that happened, and this one I was with a friend. And see, when we talk about words like microaggression, that people think that we're blowing things out of proportion, we have a feel for things. Just like how we have a feel for birds when they don't like us and they don't want us around and they hide and they're skittish. Like we can say, we see a bird's behavior, we say, that bird's skittish. We see a bird's behavior and we say, that bird's super tame. I see people's behavior around me specifically, and I have my own interpretations. So when I'm walking with my friends, who are all white usually, and they get said hello, and I get nothing, or they get greeted, or they are the ones who are spoken to, right? And I am not. You start to put some pieces together, and it happens repetitively. Now, I get it. There's a lot of skepticism, and that's okay. I'm just sharing my experience. Here's something that I think not proves anything, but will hopefully satisfy that. Not the right word, but we were at a spot where a rare bird was being seen, and this person is a prominent birder, and graciously allowed birders to stay on the outside of their property to view this bird. Now, I went with my friend because I don't like to go to faraway places on my own, especially around personal property. I have one instance where my Jamaican Chinese friend and I decided to approach a homeowner for seeing a bird that was on the other side of the tree, just inside their property. And the second we walked towards them, we were yelled at in a very unkind way. So bad that the people who were around were apologetic for the homeowner's behavior. So I like to, when I'm in faraway places, not be alone. So I was okay being there with my friend, and there's another birder there as well. And we were there, we waited for this bird, couldn't see it. We thought we might have heard it. It sounded like neither of us have ever seen one. It would have been a lifer for us. And after waiting for about maybe half an hour, we decided to leave. And I had Merlin running to see if I could get a recording of it to ID it, to see if that was indeed the bird, because we didn't know if it was there or not. So the homeowner, who when I first got there, approached my friend and talked to him and didn't give me the acknowledgement of my existence, I already kind of knew. That's okay. Not everyone's comfortable with everybody. That's okay. I don't go around assuming people are racist. I don't. But when we're about to leave and the homeowner charges out of their house and starts pointing their finger at me and demands to know if I was using playback, when all of us there who had phones were there and never got accused. And in fact, the one birder who did play the call to see what it sounded like was not me. I began to put two and two together. And it's easy to say, oh, it's this, and oh, it's that, and that's okay. That you weren't there, so you're going to put the situation together how you will. But what I can tell you is that when you have these interactions over and over, and you see them, you feel them. You don't even see them anymore, you feel them. And you know. And so I know. And so there are people who, when I feel that way, and I get that feeling, I just know, and I just keep my distance, and I go to where it feels more welcoming. And I can tell you, and so even just being able to educate my friend, I'm grateful for that incident, because even to get him, to educate him on the difference of what it feels like to be welcomed and included in something versus a very seemingly neutral but actually aggressive interaction, right? The person who will say hi to me if I say hi back to them, right? Or the person who engages with me, even though there's two of us there, and engage the both of us and actually have a conversation with me, right? You don't have to have a conversation. I'm just saying that, I contrast those two interactions with him and let him know that this stuff happens all the time. I've bird a lot in the last 4 years. Is it 2025? 4.5 years, right? So while I am aware that I am aware that I stand out, and I have to be aware that I stand out, and I would never want to. And I do appreciate opportunities to speak and to share my experience, not to say anything other than for us to think about how we are being inclusive with people who we are not familiar with. If it wasn't for those birders who decided that it was really important to not just say, racism is bad and we should not be harassing black birders, but to say, we want more black people birding. We're going to give you binoculars to make it happen. And it worked. And I'm very grateful for that. And so I want to kind of end by just encouraging us to take some lessons from the birds and how they flock together. The Canada geese, as much as the Ross's goose is probably a big attractant for predators, are totally fine with it hanging around, but and it stands out, and that's okay. But I think it's important to acknowledge those who do stand out, and they know they stand out, like we know, but to make us allow us to feel welcome and recognized and human by just saying that, yeah, I see you and you exist, and it doesn't take much more than that. The other stuff, the idiots out there that want to get into a shouting match over an off-leash dog, which, by the way, as a huge, after that incident, I realized, nothing's changed. The whole reason I got into birding was because of this incident in Central Park with an off-leash dog and someone threatening the police on them. And then here I am in Canada, where we think racism is not the same, and going through almost the same thing. And it's it's been 4 years or whatever, nothing's changed. But, my therapist really helped me reframe that, and to say that, there are bad apples out there. There are people who are just idiots, right? But there are people who think a lot of those things but don't act the way he does. And that's true. And what I can say is birding helps me to have that time to reframe my thoughts. So that's what I'm going to leave you with, is to how do we reframe our thoughts in making birding more inclusive? How do we reframe our thoughts about who's a birder and who's a photographer, right? If I have feet in both avenues or in both rooms, and I tell you what the birders say about the photographers and what the photographers say about the birders, I want nothing to do with it. I'm just like, I don't know. That's why, I call myself a birdographer, because I don't want to be any one of them. Because there's parts of each that I don't like. But I thank you for having me. I thank you for listening. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And if not, enjoy the rest of your night.
So I know we're a little bit over time here, but we can probably take just a few questions. I know we have to be kind of out of the building at 9:30, so if anybody wants to, quietly sneak away, that's perfectly fine, of course. But I believe we have a wireless mic kicking around somewhere. I know, Jackson, if you can get access to that, and we could probably take maybe until 9:20 or so questions, and then sneak out of here as quick as possible.
Thank you. Thanks, Shey. That was enlightening and inspiring in a lot of ways for me, and I appreciate you sharing those stories with us. I have a photography question. I'm a beginning bird watcher. I'm not a photographer, but I have to say now you got me thinking about like measuring my length. I don't even know what length there is, but probably not enough. Are you? Because so many of those great pictures, it's like you're on the ground looking at the bird. Are you on the ground looking at the bird? And
Absolutely.
Like water level shots.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one thing I had to change. If I wanted photos of ducks, I had to get to where they were. And so getting eye level means I am on the ground, partially in the water, partially in the shore grease, partially in whatever is in there to get that shot. Yeah. So it's one of those things I had to overcome. If I wanted to have a shot that wasn't like what I wanted, there's a lot of magic that happens when you get down there, though. Like, if you can get past the smell and the wet and all that stuff, there's some magic down there. So try it out.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for the wonderful birds, pictures, and also your experience. So just I want to say, the Peterson guy, Peterson, he said he was the photographer who became birder. So you're in a good company.
Thank you.
Are there any locations down like the Caribbean, Jamaican area that you would recommend for this sort of birding at time of year?
Possibly, I saw the wildlife photographer of the year show. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen.
Have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen it. No.
That was very expensive. I wanted to point out that when I saw your initial trumpeter swan photo, was it at dawn? When you said they looked like rocks with yellow tags?
Oh yeah, that was at LaSalle. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the good news is in the exhibition there are a lot of different categories, and so a shot like that could fit right in some of these categories. The bad news is one of the wing shots was taken with the cell phone.
Yeah, you don't need the most expensive gear to take a good shot.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. And in ups and downs, please don't move away from your craft. It's outstanding, and you have a way of looking at nature and birds and encompassing the whole picture. And that's what I really love. It's not the head of the bird, but the bird and its environment. So thank you for that.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
I know you and I are messaging quite a bit about finding a mockingbird down here. I'm glad to see one in that presentation.
Yeah.
The final question, do you have a bird, target bird species, not species?
Species.
Any species that you're after in 2025?
No. Like I had mentioned or alluded to, like 2024, my birding kind of fell off. I can, and between just us here and the internet, I wanted to have the most birds in Peel, okay? But that darn Peter L., if he's watching, Peter L. outdid me every time, but I did finally get it in 2023. But I've kind of not, now that I've done that, I don't really feel the drive to do it anymore, but when a new bird shows up that I haven't seen before and it's accessible, then I'll go for it. but I am trying to like get back into the habit of regularly going out for 2025, yeah.
I want to say, as someone who went from photography kind of listing to field recording, and who also has the brain going all the time, and having to switch context all the time between am I a birder today, or photographer today, or am I field recording today? Just say, don't get into field recording.
That's a problem. That's why I bought that mic. So now I have the mic and the camera and the bins. Like, I don't know what to do. It's,
Is there any other questions? Otherwise, I think we'll wrap up. Oh, one more.
What's your current camera? And then
oh, so right now I have so I upgraded to an R7 mirrorless, and I'm still using the 300 millimeter 2.8, but I do have a couple extenders that I run with that, a 1.4x and a 2x for when I need to have that a little bit more, but I really enjoy shooting it without the extenders. It's a beautiful lens, and it gets me what I want.
If anyone has any follow-up to get in contact with you, what's the best way to reach you?
Well, Instagram is kind of going down the tubes, but there's probably, or I'm on Discord and Instagram for now, so between there, yeah, those two. Yeah, Ontario Birds Discord, yeah. My Instagram is Suburbiter. Apparently nobody knows how to say it, but you can find me on there if you search for Shey.
All right. Well, on behalf of the club, thank you so much for this presentation.
Thank you, appreciate it.
I'm just going to be brief here and say have a good night. Dina, sorry, one thing? There are cookies out there. Yes, get them before you go. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Thank you so much.
Thanks, appreciate it.
I'm also someone who needs to get back into more birding soon too, so I could chat with you a bit after and get some information about that one.
Does he have your slides?
He does not yet, but I will give them to you. Do you want any, I didn't have any words on there. Do you want any notes or anything?
Well, I write up a summary for
Okay.
the Wood Duck magazine,
Gotcha, okay.
so I usually get a copy of the slides so I can
Gotcha.
go one or two
Okay.
pictures.
Should I send it to Rob?
Sure.
Okay, I'll do that.
The,